This is how you play Surf's Up by Brian Wilson. Before I begin, I just want to note that there are actually several different tutorials on this particular song out there on YouTube already, but I wanted to do one in my own presentational style and also talk a little bit about the lyrics at the very end of this tutorial, because in my experience, this is probably one of the most misquoted songs lyric-wise, and the lyrics can be pretty tough to decipher at points. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, the first movement of the song starts off with this rhythmic pattern that kind of alternates. Just like this. So this is the rhythm you're going to get to use pretty much throughout the first movement of the song. And this is also the first chord that we're going to play for the first movement. D, F, G, B flat, and in the left hand we have a D. And we're going to play this chord in the right hand a total of 8 times. So when you get to the 8th time, that's when you're going to transition to the next chord in the song. Next chord is D, F, A, C. D, F, A, C. Same rhythmic pattern. And in the left hand, we're going to play a G. Same thing, 8 times. Then back to the first chord. And then back to this chord. So that's the main part of the verses. And then we're going to transition into the columnated runes domino part. And for that, from this chord, which we end off on for the verses, when we transition to the columnated runes domino part, we're going to play a similar chord in the right hand to what we were playing the first time around, except we're going to omit this G. So the chord in the right hand is D, F, B flat. And in the left hand, we're going to play a B flat, and we're actually going to play this chord 4 times, but there's a little bit of a transition note-wise that you're going to have to make in the left hand as you're doing this, so just watch and I'll explain what's happening in just a bit. So we're playing this 4 times, we're hitting the B flat the first time, so around the time we hit this twice, we're going to hit the B flat in the bass again, and then we're going to hit a G in the bass immediately after. Again, 4 times, but roughly on the second time is when you do this in the left hand. So altogether, the first part of the columnated runes domino sequence will go like this. Okay, next chord. In the right hand, we have C, F, A. In the left hand, we're playing just a regular C down here. So we're going to play C, F, A twice, and then we're going to shift these top 2 fingers down to these notes, an E and a G. So it's still a C, but then we have E and G for the other 2 notes, and we're still playing the C in the left hand. So all together for columnated runes domino, we have so last chord in columnated runes domino, we have A, D, G flat, and we're still on the C in the left hand. So all together for the columnated runes domino part, once again from the top, we have okay. So notice we're playing this 4 times, this last chord, but for the previous 2 chords, we're playing them twice. So just make a note of that. So that's the right hand stuff for Columnated Runes Domino, and in the left hand we're playing C throughout pretty much. The bass note does not change here for the Columnated Runes Domino sequence, except for at the beginning. That kind of stuff. Next, for the Canvas the Town and Brush the Backdrop part, we're going to take our left hand and go from the C note that we were hitting previously and go up to a D note. In our right hand, we're going to play B, D, G 4 times. Then left hand is going to go down to a G, and the chord is going to shift over to an A, D flat, E. So all together for Canvas the Town and Brush the Backdrop, we have this is the last chord. So we are going from A, D, flat, E over to A, D, G flat. So right hand stuff will be, and left hand stuff will be, and then when we get to this final chord, we're going to alternate it with this A note. So all together it will be like this. Five times in the right hand, you're going to strike that chord. The first time around, anyway. The second instance of the verses plays exactly like the first instance. You're going to play everything exactly the same except the ending. Instead of playing the ending with this chord in the right hand 5 times, you're actually going to play it just 4 times. So the ending will change because we have this little "Are You Sleeping, Brother John" part that we're about to get to. So let me just play that part and I'll show you how it segues into the "Are You Sleeping, Brother John" part. So you noticed, played this chord 4 times, and then for the Brother John part, in the left hand, we're going to play a D, and the chord in the right hand is D, G flat, A, D. So we're going to hold this chord down and we're going to strike the D in the left hand a second time. So again, once again from the top, we have. Okay, in the right hand, we have D, G, B, and D again. And in the left hand, we have E. So once again, from the top of the Brother John sequence. Next chord, right hand is playing D, G, B flat, D. Left hand is going to go up to an F note. So we're kind of climbing sequentially here. So once again, from the top, we have. And that's the end of the Brother John part. The chord we're playing in the right hand is the same chord we started out on. So it's the D, G flat, A, D chord. And in the left hand, we're going to go up to a G flat. So again, all together in completion, it's the Brother John part will sound like this. And that is the end of the first movement of the song. Second movement. The rhythm of the second movement will change. So we're not really going to be alternating. Instead, we're kind of just holding down the notes that we're going to be playing in the left hand. And we are going to be striking full chords in the right hand as usual. So the first chord in the right hand is going to go F, A flat, C, E flat, and in the left hand for this chord, we're going to strike an A flat. And we're going to strike the chord in the right hand 8 times in total. And in the left hand, we're just going to hold down that A flat. Nothing changes throughout. 6, 7, 8. Then we're going to shift to the next chord. Next chord is in the right hand, we have E flat, G, B flat, and this high E flat. And in the left hand, we're playing a B flat. So once again from the top, we have this. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're going to repeat that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's the dove nested towers part. So you're playing essentially this and this, each individual chord 8 times each, and you're playing it twice. Okay. And then for the next section, we're going to transition into the laughs come hard in Auld Lang Syne. So for this, we're going to play, this is the first note. So this is a chord from basically the beginning of the song. D, F, A, C. And in the left hand, we're playing this D. Playing that 4 times. Then we're going to transition to this chord. It's the very first chord from the very start of the song, D, F, G, B flat. And for this sequence, we're going to play a C with it at the beginning of when you strike this chord. So pretty much we're not alternating anymore, just like we were at the beginning of the second movement. We're just holding these notes down pretty much. The first time we strike the chord in the right hand, we're striking the bass notes and we're holding it down throughout. So it will sound like this. 4. Only going to strike that twice. Okay, so the next chord after that, in the right hand, your bottom 2 fingers are going to shift down 1. So you're going to play C, E, G, B flat. And you're going to strike the C again in the left hand because, again, this is a different chord. And we're just playing this twice each, essentially. So all together, so far, we have... Okay, so... right hand, we are playing C, F, A, and in the left hand, we're going to go down to this F. And we're going to play this 8 times in the right hand while holding down this F. So all together, we will have... 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then you're going to repeat that, but it's going to be a little bit different the second time you do this. You're going to play it a little bit faster, and you're going to end a little bit differently. So this is the Glass Was Raised sequence, lyrically, just so you know where in the song we are. Then when we get to this last chord, we're actually in the left hand going to play... So we're going to strike this twice in the right hand. In the left hand, the toasting part, G, F. So all together from the top of the Laughs Come Hard sequence, we have... Next, we're going to play that sequence again, but we're going to play it just like the first time, not how we played it just before. So basically back to the normal rhythm that we set at the first part of the Laughs Come Hard sequence. So all together it will be like this from the top of this sequence. For the final instance of this sequence, we're going to play just what we played before. So same speed as the first time and the third time, but we're going to double everything up essentially. So every time we strike a chord 4 times, we're actually going to strike it 8 times. Except for the end, where we're just going to strike this once to finish off this subsequence of the song. So that is how you play it. Once again, I'm just going to play that whole subsequence from the top. Okay, now for the Surf's Up Aboard a Tidal Wave, we're going to go back to the first chords for the second movement. So once again, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, for the build up to the end tag, the I Heard the Word section, we're going to play in the left hand this D flat, and in the right hand we're actually going to play A flat, C, E flat. So it's this chord but without the bottom F. And we're only going to play that 4 times. 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to transition back into the full second chord that we have in the right hand for the start of the second movement, which we're playing in this spot here. Except that this time around, we're going to drop what we're playing in our left hand. We were playing a D flat before, but we're going to drop it down to a C. So once again, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're only playing this 4 times now. Next, you're going to go back to that first chord again. So this time with the bottom F, and in the left hand we're playing an F note, this low F, and we're just going to hold this down throughout because we're actually playing this 4 times and this 4 times. But when we play this chord, we're not going to strike the F again. We're just holding the F down for this instance of the song, this point in the song. Well, you know what I mean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then in the left hand, we're next going to play B flat. In the right hand, we're going to play this chord to start off with for the first instance of this sequence. So this chord is F, B flat, C, but for the second time that we strike this, so we're striking this 4 times as well, but we're going to play it like this. So it's only this the first time. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The top C note becomes a D for all other instances of striking this particular chord. So it will be like this. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. So this chord in the right hand is G, B flat, E flat, and in the left hand we have a C. So I'm going to start again from the top of the I heard the word section so you can hear what it sounds like all together. Okay, and that is the second movement in its entirety, and now we're going to move on to the end tag. The end tag of the song. Basically, your right hand is going to be playing exactly what you were playing before chord-wise for the most part. You're going to be playing these chords. And you're going to be playing them pretty much 8 times individually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The only thing you'll have to get used to, practice-wise, is just that. Because there's different ways you can finger this kind of chord where the top note is going to move up. I use fingering like this. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. And you're going to play this a little bit faster. Like the tempo really kicks up a notch here. But it's really what your left hand is doing that's making this end tag sound so insanely cool, in my opinion. So this is a little tough to explain, but I'm going to do my best. So at the start, we're going to play an F for this chord. Now, before I even begin this, actually, before I even start playing this and explain what happens from here on out, I want to just let everybody watching this know that it's important to keep track of how many times you are striking each chord here, because how many times you strike it, like what instance you've struck it, is how you're going to be able to tell when the bass note should sync up with what you're doing in the right hand. So generally speaking, the first time you strike a chord, the 6th time you strike a chord, and the 8th time that you strike a chord, and also for the last chord, the 4th time that you strike the chord. So those numbers, 1, 4, 6, 8, are really, really important to get this pattern down. And you're going to see why in a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when we strike this chord the 6th time, that's when we're going to stop holding down the F in the left hand, and we're going to strike a C in the left hand instead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So what's happening here is kind of as you're changing chords, this second chord, your left hand is going to quickly strike this high F note and then go back to this low F note. What makes this bass note sequence so insanely cool and make it sound as good as it does is the concept of ghost notes. Now, ghost notes are basically, there's a variety of ways you can kind of explain them, but I like to say that they add texture to the song, musical texture, and they add movement, a sense of movement to the song as well, depending on how you use them. But basically, it's the idea of a note kind of shadowing another note and giving it kind of a flavor that it otherwise would not have if this ghost note did not exist. If you're familiar with the wall of sound and the concept behind the wall of sound, which as a Beach Boys fan, you definitely should be familiar with the Wall of Sound. The Wall of Sound, as Phil Spector envisioned it, was basically instruments, a bunch of musical instruments in the same room, kind of bleeding and blending into one another to become a brand new sound of a almost brand new instrument in essence when you're just analyzing the sound itself. So instruments blending into other instruments. And that's kind of what's happening here with these ghost notes, is when you play a ghost note, it kind of bleeds and blends into the next note. And that is what makes this bass note sequence sound so amazing, but it is also probably a pretty big factor in why it's not necessarily agreed on what some of these bass notes are supposed to be. Because if you actually look around YouTube, there's not really like just one consensus out there of what some of the bass notes are. I'm going to explain and kind of show what I hear the bass notes as being, and they're pretty similar to what you see out there already, but there are some differences, I will say, and I'll point them out. But for this beginning portion, this portion is pretty much agreed upon by everybody. So once again from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so here's where it starts to change. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm just speeding up here. 7, 8. So in the left hand, when you get to this section, you're not going to hit the F again. Instead, you're going to land on the B flat here. So once again, from the top, we'll have... Okay, so notice B, and then we're going to shift from this chord when we hit the B to this chord. 3, 4, 5, 6. So just note, it's only this for the first time that you strike this chord, and then it becomes a D as the upper note instead of a C. So once again. Okay, so this is the toughest part to kind of explain here, but when you get to the sixth instance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in the left hand, this is what you're going to play. First off, you're going to play the B flat a second time, but you're going to hit it very, very lightly. You don't really want to strike it per se, as much as you want to almost pretend like it's a springboard. You know how on let's say a diving board even, not springboard, diving board is really what I mean. You know how when you're on a diving board, you're trying to build up momentum. The first time that you are striking the diving board, you're kind of jumping on it. It's pretty soft, and you're building up to, building up enough force to launch yourself off of the diving board. That's kind of how you want to think of this first B flat here, is that it's the first time that you're really trying to build up that momentum. So you're not striking it really hard, you're almost kind of just softly doing that. But the notes here are B flat, F, E, F, B flat, B. Now, I'm going to play that, and before I get to the top of this sequence, I want to show you just what it sounds like. Okay, so here is where a lot of people, including myself in the past, have pretty much coincided this top C note with the next chord. So you can play it like that and it will sound fine. But the way that I hear the end tag, the bass notes, is that there's actually a second instance of striking this B before you strike the C. And you're not really, like in the studio recording, they're not really striking it when they get to the first, like it's not like this. So they're not striking the B when they strike this, and they're not striking the C when they strike this the first time either. What's really happening is you're striking the B flat and the C. It's not, I'm sorry, not the B flat, the B and the C, kind of on the downbeat after you've struck this chord the first time. So the downbeat being the space in between these two instances of playings, 1, 2. So in between the 1 and the 2, essentially. So here's what it sounds like in total. Just like that. You almost want to hold down that B before you're ready to strike it again on the downbeat. And it's pretty rapid. So once again, okay, so that's what it sounds like. Now for the descent downwards and kind of the resetting of this sequence. So the right hand's playing this 8 times. You already heard what it sounds like when you're playing these 2 bass notes. It's in the downbeat between the first and the second time that you strike this chord. So it's kind of hard to play on its own because I'm just so used to this, but let me play it from the top and then I'll get to the next section. Okay, so this last chord, what's happening here is, I already explained this part, where you're striking this in the downbeat between the first and the second time that you strike this last chord. The 4th time that you strike this, that is when you're going to strike the next sequence of bass notes, which is C and G. So that's the only instance in this end sequence, this end tag, where the 4th time you strike a chord in the right hand is when you strike a certain series of notes in the left hand. Okay, so that's the 4th time. And then the 6th time that you strike this is when you begin the descent downwards, the chromatic descent downwards. So from the C down to this F, which is where we began this end tag sequence. So 6th time that you strike this, you're going to strike the C, and then basically you're going to strike every single note that exists between the C and this F. Now there's a lot of variation I've seen. I've seen other players on YouTube play this sequence with 7 notes. They'll usually omit a note somewhere in here. More common than not, I'll see them either omit the B or the G flat, one or the other. But I hear 8 notes. Everybody seems to be playing 7 notes. When I listen to the Brian Wilson Presents Smile version of the backing track, which is actually on my YouTube channel, if you want to listen to it, it's actually on my channel. So just click on my channel page and you can go to the video section and you'll find it there. I am hearing 8 notes in total. Full chromatic descent down on that version. Which you start, again, 6th time, and then you hit that bottom F. You're going to time it so that you're going to hit the first instance of the beginning chord of the end tag with this bottom F. So essentially, you're playing 2 notes for every 1 strike in the right hand. 2 notes in the left hand for every 1 strike in the right hand. So altogether, it will sound like this. the idea. It's not perfect because I'm playing this a little bit slower than I should be playing it. I'm going to play it actually super slow so it's easier to see. But you're going to play this sequence 4 times if you're trying to mimic the Brian Wilson Presents Smile version. On the studio version of the original Beach Boys song, it actually occurs, like the sequence, you play it 5 times. And the 5th time is really for the fade out portion of the song. So instead of just ending on the first chord when you get to this bottom sequence at the end of the 4th time, it starts again and plays for a 5th time so that the fade out can occur. But let me play this super slow as I possibly can, just so you can see this easier. Just like that, essentially. But yeah, that is the end tag. And once you get to the bottom here, you can just end like this on this first chord. That's how the Brian Wilson Presents Smile studio version ends. So, and that's it. That is Surf's Up in terms of how you play it. Next, I want to talk about the lyrics a little bit.